Okay, I know it's been a minute since my last video, but ladies and gentlemen, we are back today, and I feel like the natural progression from my last video, which was focusing on basic fundamentals of color grading in DaVinci specifically for video, would be to do something along similar lines with photos. Now, I'm going to start here in Lightroom. I'm going to go over my workflow in terms of a basic color grade, the basic color grading editing techniques that I use to make my photos look half decent, some of the fundamental things that you need to think about, specifically with color. Then I'm also going to go over thought processes behind why I'm doing the things I'm doing and why they often work and where that's coming from. What I won't be going over is anything that's not color specific. I think I'm going to try to leave other fundamentals like framing and lighting and other aspects of compositional knowledge to be in a different video, because I feel like going into things such as rule of thirds and leading lines and framing would be really useful, but take up more time than we're gonna have in this video. So without further ado, let me grab an image here. This is all from a recent trip. This is one of the last things I posted on my Instagram, so I'm just gonna grab a different one here that I haven't posted yet and that I haven't even edited yet, of this upper waterfall here. I think this is probably a good example. These are a little dark. I could still probably pull that up. As you can see, it's a raw file, so if I pull up the exposure, it'll be pretty easy to lighten that up. But I think I'm gonna grab this one. It's already a little bit brighter for me here. Now, first off, the first thing you wanna do with your photo is adjust its exposure. Whether or not you pull this up or down should be just purely based on your photo. Obviously this is fairly well exposed already, but for example, if your photo was way too dark, you're going to want to pull this up. Now, depending upon the type of photo you have, this will create noise in the dark areas where there's a lack of data, but overall you want your scene to be well lit. That is the most important foundational aspect of having a good photo. So for me, I'm not really going to touch this. I think my shadows are a little too dark though, and I do have on Lightroom a shadow slider. So I'm just going to pull that up until my shadows are brighter. You know, and pull that all the way up. Like, I want my shadows nice and bright. I might pull up the exposure just a little bit, and then I'm going to pull down the highlights a little bit, you see, because the waterfall becomes a little overexposed and you lose some detail there. So I'm just going to go minus 30 there so that we get that detail back. Here's the before and after. Before and after. You can just see that the shadows get a little darker. You know, obviously you don't want to go too far because then it looks odd. You know, your sky is darker and it doesn't look right compared to how bright the rest of your scene is. So we still want it to look realistic, but we do want to try to gain back some of these dark spots here. Now, second thing I'm going to do, second most important, I would say, is adjust my white balance. Like I said in the last tutorial I did, I really like my scenes to be quite warm. So I'm going to turn the warmth up. Now this is the tricky thing with water, or with anything white in your scene. You don't want it to look unnaturally colored due to your white balance. So see if I pull this way up, while that obviously looks ridiculous, but if I pull it up to like there, this doesn't look that out of place. Like that's an okay color for that rock to be. However, the water now looks a little yellow. It's a little off, you know, and the yellowy bits of it are way too yellow. They almost look dirty. So you can see that that's a little dramatic for me. That's a little bit too much. It's not accurate enough. So I just want to pull that up a little bit. Just really, what I'm aiming for is just getting these greens to pop a little bit more. You know, be a little warmer, less blue. I'm going to just pull that up a little bit. Next, I'm going to move on to what really is the focus of this video, which is the 30-60-10 rule. I think it's one of the most important things to take into account in your photography, period. It is one of the things that can have the biggest effect on creating a captivating image. And what the 30-60-10 rule is the rule you should follow in terms of your colors in your image whenever possible. It really helps to create an image that is super visually engaging, it pops, and at the same time it feels concise and well put together. And what that rule is 60% main color, 30% accent color, 10% highlight color. So the point really is just to pick 2 or 3 colors to make sure that your image comes across as concise, defined, and not all over the place. So for me, the absolute first thing I do after I choose my colors is I find anywhere there's blue wash. Blue wash is where you get these shadows that don't have very much color information or whatever, and they sort of get this bluish tint or bluish hue, like right here, you can see. So if I grab the blue here, you'll see that changes quite a bit. So obviously sometimes if you do that, it'll look unnatural if you have a large portion of sky or whatever. But for this image, there's like no sky. So I'm going to take these blue areas here. That's obviously exaggerated, and I'm just going to turn that off. I don't want blue. I want that to be all the way gray, just like the rest of the dark and bright areas. Next, I'm going to play with my most prevalent color, green. So I'm going to grab the green option in the color mixture here, and I'm going to look at what hue I want it to be. See, you can change significantly the hues there. You can go all the way towards the yellow side of things. You can go towards the more aggressive greeny teal side of things. I'm just going to lower it a bit to be more of that yellowy color, and then we're also going to pull that saturation up quite a bit. Not all the way, but halfway, just to make that pop. It'll look more unique this way. We don't want to go all the way down, that's way too orange, but we can just bring it down a little bit, down to like 30, and get more of this yellowy, sort of more in line with this rock and what else we're looking at, like the bark of the tree and stuff, to create more cohesion in our image. I'm also going to get the orange for this rock, and I'm going to play it that. Where do I want it? You know, that's horrible. And so is that. I think we want it somewhere down towards the red, or towards the pinky red. Looks kind of nice. Just down there a little bit, maybe. 45. Pull up that saturation a little. Not too much. You can see it spreading onto the water there. We definitely don't want that. So we want to keep it relatively desaturated. Something like that will probably be fine. And then I'm just going to play with the other colors as well, because I know the yellow will also greatly affect what's around here. And you can just sort of flow and see where you want it to go. As long as you keep that 30-60-10 rule in mind, you can just play and single out the main colors you want to use in your image and just adjust them as you want. Now, I don't want to make it too crazy. I want it to maintain its likeness. I want it to maintain its realism, but I want to imbue it with the feeling that I felt when I was there taking the photo. That's sort of my philosophy in terms of photography. Is I want, when people look at this image, I want them to feel a little piece of that emotion I felt when I was in this amazing place taking this photo. And so there is a bit of creative embellishment there. That's not to say I'm going to go in and do anything crazy. I mean, obviously it's personal preference. Some people go crazy with their photos and they look nothing like what came straight out of camera, and some people do almost nothing and they're just completely raw. It's really up to you. Some people might think that what I'm doing is already too much, and some people might think that I'm not doing enough, but I'm just going to do what's in line with what I think is reasonable to do to your photos and still say this is what it looked like. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just adjusting things, but not changing anything super material, is what I would say. Now I think I'm going to lean back into this green, maybe try to see what that looks like if we brought that, that was the orange. See what it looks like if we do change back that green. What would it look like now if we go quite lean into that? That's interesting. It's pretty green though, so I might want to pull the saturation up of that yellow a little, and then pull the saturation down of this green a little, just to give it a more realistic tone. Don't want to go down too far. Something like that, just to balance it out, you know. Little green in the yellows and the little yellow in the greens, basically is what I did there. I'm gonna go a little bit further green, just a tish, just so we get these nice bright mosses popping. And to be honest, what I find is that when I take my photos, it often looks quite flat compared to what it was to my eye. And so I would say this is pretty accurately the color representation that it was in reality. Obviously, there's no way to validate that, but looking at it in hindsight, I think this is quite an accurate representation of what these colors look like. Right, now that I'm done with that, I'm gonna look for anything else I can do with the colors that would make it a little bit more two-tone. So I'm gonna turn the purple off. Doesn't do a lot, but does a little. I'm gonna turn the pink off because I'm not using any pink. I don't want any pink in this image. I'm definitely gonna turn off the red. I feel like I'm seeing some red hues in here, and I don't like the look of that. So I'm gonna turn the red off as well. Up here, I'm seeing that it is magenta skewed a little. That could be why some of my shadows, my black spots on my rocks are looking a little magenta hued. And if you see right there, you can totally tell the difference that's making. Look at that, that's a big difference. Obviously it ruins this rock a little bit, so we'll have to correct that. But for the rest of the image, I feel like just pulling this down, just back to 0. And it looks a little bit green hued, but we can fix that, and I feel like that makes the shadows look much more true to life. Obviously you don't want to go too far, it'll ruin that white balance in the water, as we were speaking about before and whatnot. But if I just go down a little bit, just to you know, -2, -1, or -2, -1 probably is fine. I think that looks much better. Now I have to go fix the rock that I've just ruined. I'm just going to take this away from that magenta hue, or no, lean into this magenta hue to bring back that color there. Quite hard actually, and pull this up a little. The other thing you could do if I was struggling, you know, I'm struggling with this color a little bit, is you can just grab it here, and you can, so this is basically just like a color picker tool. Grab it here, and I can change that a little bit. You know, right now that is changing a lot of the scene. You got to look up at the rocks and stuff. So I don't really want to change that too much. It's really just a bit of trial and error sometimes with things like this. It's also sometimes hard to tell exactly what hue you're playing with. I think if I do that, that looks a little better. Now it's not so green saturated. I want the blacks to be a little blacker, so that's another thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to pull the blacks down now, just to sort of see this corner here, this whole side. You're kind of drawing the eye into the waterfall a little bit more if it's better contrasting with the rest of the scene. Obviously you don't want to go too much to look ridiculous, but you can go a little bit, just sort of 10 or so. I tend to overdo things, so I have to pull back a little, and I feel like that's quite a bit better. Next I'm going to come down here to the effects tab. I'm going to change whatever I want with the clarity. A lot of my water-based images, I leave this sort of where it is. I like this fluffy soft light on the water with the mist and whatnot. If I turn up the clarity, I find that I lose a lot of that. It tries to sort of single out each droplet and make it more defined, and I'm not always a fan of that. The texture hits a little different sometimes, so sometimes I'll turn that up a little bit instead. For this image, I quite like how it feels soft, so I'm going to leave it feeling quite soft like that, and move on to the next step, which for me will be this color grading tab. This is a way that I might be able to get rid of some of that there. So first of all, if I go to the shadows, I can change their color. It's basically just something used to single out certain luminance levels and grade them separately. Sometimes it works better than others. It works better in a more contrasting scene with clearly defined brights, shadows, and highlights. This, obviously, we have a defined highlight and we have some shadows, but the shadows lack significant color, and we have a lot of midtones here, so it's not going to work as well. You can see the highlight there does work nicely. It sort of just grabs the waterfall, but because we don't really need to change the waterfall, that's not going to help us out much. So I'm going to go into masking now, and I'm going to just grab a landscape mask. This will automatically mask off what Lightroom thinks are different parts of the landscape in your image, so that we should be able to get a solid mask of whatever area we want to focus on, which is the water. That'll do for me, I think. And basically for this, I'm just going to turn down the saturation. I think that's best. I think we're going to go for this pretty monotone image but it's not super bright. Turn down the saturation. I might mess with the white balance a little, but I don't want to do anything crazy. And we gotta be aware that there's this piece of tree in it as well, so that's something that we don't want to mess up too bad. And I think the best option in terms of the look I'm trying to get in this image is just to reduce that saturation a little. Now I think that's my favorite option so far. I mean, in reality, the rock there wasn't that bright to begin with, as far as I could tell, so I'm not really worried about sort of destroying that color, because to the eye it wasn't significantly there to begin with. You can obviously mess with clarity and whatnot from here as well, just to section out that particular portion of the image. If you wanted to make it really soft, if you wanted to make it really clear, or if you wanted to up the texture or down the texture. Obviously I'm just using extreme examples so that you can see the difference. And I think I'm just gonna go up a little bit, like 20. And then there we go. We have what I think is a much better version of this image compared to just before the color grading. From that to something like this. This is a pretty accurate representation, I feel like, of what I saw on the day. The last thing I'm going to do, run any AI denoise. For things like fur and hair and whatnot, this can be quite annoying because the AI doesn't really know that, you know, a strand of hair needs to be traceable. So it kind of gets jumbled up there and it'll lose the texture authenticity. But for something like this, it tends to work quite well. So I'm just gonna check it out. It's always worth a try. You can look at what it does with the image, and it can be a really good way just to remove some of the noise from the dark areas and really pull those details out a little tiny bit better. So I'm just gonna look at, I think it's fine on the moss there. There's a little bit of color noise, so I'm obviously gonna make sure that that stops happening, which is really easy. Just put the color noise reduction back to its standard and make sure you turn on remove chromatic aberration so you don't get this weird chromatic aberration. I think for the most part, I am now done with this image. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's much better than what I had there before. I'll do a settings section in another video, but that's my workflow for my photos. Try to find 2 or 3, maybe occasionally 4 colors in your image and that you want to bring together well, and then use those to make the image cohesive and concise. Alrighty, well, that's about all I had to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was at least somewhat informative and educational. I hope you learned something from it, and I hope it's going to help you on your photography journey. I'll continue to try to post tidbits here and there with more information that I found helpful and bits and pieces of my workflow that I think others could benefit from. If you're enjoying the content, then I'd love to hear from you. And if you have anything in particular that you'd like to know or would love help with, feel free to reach out to me either over on Instagram or on YouTube or wherever, and I will do my best to answer any questions you might have for me. All right, till the next one.